Hey, I'm Rob Gant with the Goose Creek Gazette and the Berkeley Independent. We are in Summerville today. This is my teammate Roger Lee of the Summerville Journal Scene. We are talking football. It was a fantastic week of games last week, and we've got a bunch of good ones coming up this week. The big thing is it's the region openers for all these teams. So now these games start to matter.
That's right.
Over there in Dorchester County, I'm looking at the list of games, and looks like a couple of good ones. What you got going on?
All right. We'll start by talking about what they did this week. Wando lost an overtime game. Ashley Ridge lost to Wando in overtime, 34-33. It's an exciting game. Ashley Ridge was down 22-6 at the half, but had a great second half to come back and force overtime. Then lost it at the end. Went for 2 points instead of the field goal. Kenny Walker thought his defense had been out there on the field too long. He's like, let's just see if we can punch one in. And Wando made a great play. They got through the line and got to the quarterback. Duncan still almost threw he got the pass off, but he just, didn't quite have enough zip on it. So that's how the game ended. But a great game by both teams. We'll talk a little bit more about Wando in another video that's coming up. Ashley Ridge, some highlights. Troy Grant, running back, threw a touchdown pass, ran for a touchdown pass, ended up with 159 all-purpose yards. Matt Duncan, another great game for him. On the defensive side, Jaron Strickland and Jaden Lee both had 9 tackles each. The Ashley Ridge defense is starting to look better. Now, that's good because they got Summerville coming up this week. Summerville is coming off a 40-37 loss to Berkeley in overtime.
That was another classic, my friend.
You were there, right?
Yes, I was. It was a classic.
Maybe talk about that one a little bit more when we get to your side of things.
I got you. All
right. Summerville is at 3-2. Ashley Ridge is at 2-3. In that Berkeley game, Colby Shirey, a young quarterback, ended up having 125 passing yards. Perry Wilder is a receiver. Brody Hopkins is getting a lot of recognitions, but I think that Wilder is kind of established himself as that second threat deep, and he's also a threat on the jet sweep, and so I think look for big things for him in that Ashley Ridge game. They're probably going to at least try to go to him. Let's see. I think that game between Summerville and Ashley Ridge, it's at Ashley Ridge. It's going to be a real tight game, hard fought. I'm looking for the defenses to kind of dictate what happens there. Both these teams have the weapons, so they can score. They can run, they can throw. So I'm looking for the team that plays the better defense, limits the mistakes to win this game. Along those lines, for Summerville, linebacker Luke Taylor is poised to have a big game. He's been doing well this season, one of their leading tacklers, senior, I believe, and so he's going to want to get that rivalry win and keep the momentum that the Green Wave had earlier in the season before they took that loss to Berkeley. Also, defensive lineman Xavier Davis is a big fella who's been getting a lot of tackles as of late. So I look for them to kind of maybe be difference makers in that game. For Ashley Ridge, defensive back Khalil Whitaker already has a couple of interceptions on the season. He's making an impact. And defensive lineman Anthony Jackson could be another one who might step up on the defensive side of things, because that's what it's going to come down to. Special teams will be big if it gets close. I think there's kind of, both teams are kind of, it's a wash there. I don't think either one is necessarily better than the other one as far as field goal kicking, punting, stuff like that. What do you think, Rob? What's your prediction on Ashley Ridge, Summerville?
The big key to me, and the one thing that people may not think about, is just the emotional type of games both of those teams are in on Friday. Both lost heartbreakers. To me, the key really is which team can get its feet under it earliest this week and get that loss behind them and get focused on what's coming up. Having seen both, having have to pick one, I really got to think Summerville's a little better than Ashley Ridge. I think really the difference will be probably Brody Hopkins making some play behind the receiver for the Green Wave, kickoff return man. I think the difference will be probably him. He'll make some plays in the as a receiver, and Lord knows if you kick to him, you're taking a risk. So
right.
I think Summerville's better than Ashley Ridge, and I think it'll probably be a 2-score game.
Oh, wow, okay. Also, we got coming up, Fort Dorchester's going to West Ashley. Fort Dorchester's coming off a 31-14 win over Goose Creek. Wide receiver Joel Seaman had a big game for the Fort. But I think the difference when they go to West Ashley is going to be, again, defense. I mean, Fort is just not giving up points. They're not giving up many touchdowns. I think it's only 2 or 3 they've given up all year. Gosh, look at their stats. It's impressive. I mean, they have 26 sacks on the year, 68 tackles for a loss. Linebacker Jaden Gardner has 53 tackles to lead the team. Defensive end Emmanuel Johnson is getting a lot of college notice. He has 7 sacks, which is a team high. Also a bunch of tackles for a loss. And Khalid Gadsden has 4 interceptions on the year. Now that puts him on track. If he keeps picking passes off like he has early in the season, he stands a chance to break the state record. I think the state record's only like 11, isn't it?
I can't say I have the state record for interceptions.
Yeah, I'm off the top of my head, but it's not like 20 or anything like that. Because I remember a few years ago, I think it was a Summerville guy was getting real close to it.
He would definitely have to continue on the same pace he's at. But yeah, I would think 11 or 12 puts you in the conversation, but I honestly don't know it.
Yeah.
I didn't make 11 interceptions in a season, so I have no idea what somebody else has done. Anyway, all right.
West Ashley's struggling. I think they only have 1 win on the year.
Yeah, 4 to win for sure. Without question.
Well, I wouldn't be that confident, but I would say they're a heavy favorite.
They definitely are, but we've said this about West Ashley in the past. Those guys have been able in the past to just 1 week out of the year just jump up and stun somebody and play somebody really well or beat them. We've seen that from them historically. I don't know if they have the horses to do it this year, but if there's anybody that's capable of springing a major upset a la North Carolina Clemson, might be the West Ashley Wildcats, because they have jumped up and gotten people in the past.
Right. Also, we have Pinewood is picking up a little momentum. They lost to Wilson Hall 30-14. This week they're hosting Cardinal Newman. I think the Panthers are starting to figure some stuff out. They played some really tough teams early in the season. I don't know much about Cardinal Newman, but it'll be interesting to see what they do on that momentum they built up this Friday night. Jay Scott had a 5-yard touchdown run for that one, and Addison Vinatelli had a 30-yard touchdown reception from quarterback Myron Wigfall. And I wasn't at that game, but from what I found online, reading it from the Pinewood Twitter site, the receivers had a good game for Pinewood. Grayson Mad had some catches. Josh Higuchi, if I'm pronouncing that right, I'm probably not. And fullback Rashim Cherisol, Cherisol, the fullback for Pinewood. I'll try to make a note to ask somebody how he pronounces that. But it's good to see them get in the end zone, and it's good to see them, because they had some really tough losses this year. We'll see what they can do against Cardinal Newman. Cardinal Newman is a team, school that has a strong soccer tradition. I'm not so sure they have as strong a football tradition as some of the other teams Pinewood has seen this year.
Well, Pinewood definitely, the pressure mounts a little bit when you're looking for your first win of the year, because football is a game you want to get some reward for your hard work, and Pinewood's definitely itching to get that first win.
That's about all we have coming up, and again, we'll talk about some of these games a little bit later after you talk about them. But why don't you tell me what's going on in Berkeley County?
Well, first of all, I want to appreciate Roger for leaving me 3 minutes to do my segment. I'm just kidding. But I will go quickly so we can get you back to the rest of your day. Goose Creek at Cane Bay in a Region 7 5A opener for both teams. Contrast in offensive philosophies. Cane Bay wants to run the ball all the time. Goose Creek wants to pass it the majority of the time. Both teams, it's really hard to pick a winner here. I've seen both, and there's a lot of games like that this week where it's hard to pick a winner. I think the difference here is, Goose Creek's defense. I've seen them a couple times this year, and I've been really impressed with how they've been able to play. You saw, no, actually you didn't see them against Fort, but they played a pretty competitive game against Fort Dorchester, and they've had some other moments this year where they look pretty good, like against West Ashley. They had 4 turnovers. They blocked a couple of punts. One name I want to mention here, kind of keep an eye on for Goose Creek on Friday, is a guy named Quinn Tolbert. Against Fort Dorchester, he had an interception, and he also had a fumble return for a touchdown. This is after I saw him against West Ashley. He blocked 2 punts to set up a touchdown. So he's having a nice little run here. Offensively for Goose Creek, the quarterback is Manny Mukwamu. 2 weeks ago, he had 6 touchdown passes against Stall. Cane Bay is coming off a 42-13 win over Stall. I mean, it was typical Cane Bay, run. They also got a great effort from one of their linebackers, a young man named Austin Carter. He was in on 12 total tackles. He had a fumble recovery, snagged an interception back, took it back for a touchdown, actually. So both teams enter the game probably feeling pretty good about themselves on their last performances. I know Goose Creek lost to Fort Dorchester, but it was actually a competitive game when you compare it to some of the other scores. So picking this one real quick, don't wax poetic or anything, but Goose Creek, Cane Bay, how do you see it going?
So hard to tell because it like you touched on, it depends on can Cane Bay possess the ball. If Cane Bay possesses the ball, they stand as good a chance as anybody against Goose Creek. But I'm kind of leaning toward Goose Creek. I think they're due for a win. They were really excited early in the season for good reason. I think they've got a stronger team than they've shown so far. So, but not by much. I mean, I think it's one of those toss-up games like they most are. But I'll go with Goose Creek.
Yeah, Cane Bay's won 3 in a row in the series, including last year 27-24. I think this year I'm going to go with the Gators in a really close football game that is going to entertain the fans. I'm going to go with the Gators. Hanahan hits the road to go over to Daniel Island, take on Bishop England. Historically, this is a game where you could say the Hanahan was going to win. They've won 17 in the last 20 against the Bishops, but Hanahan is 0-4 for the first time in 8 years. Not looking like typical Hanahan. I've seen Bishop England earlier this year. I think they're actually a solid football team here. I don't know. I think Bishop England's probably just a little bit better than Hanahan, but I think Hanahan will have a chance to win the football game. Should be a real close football game. Stratford, also another Region 7 opener, is going to head over to James Island. This is a situation where, Stratford is significantly the better football team. The Knights are, coming off a win on Friday night against West Ashley.
That's right.
The Knights beat them 30-21. It was a nice game. I like how some of these young guys are playing for the Knights. The running back is Jaden Austin. He had 3 touchdowns against West Ashley. He's a freshman, I believe. And they also blocked a couple of punts, and they had a nice return by a young man who's also a freshman named Ja'Kai Robinson. He returned a punt to set up another touchdown. Nice little complimentary effort here by Stratford on Friday night with everybody kind of getting into the act. One other touchdown was a nice play from quarterback Josh Davis to Jalen Hayward. It was a 60-yard touchdown pass. James Island, I just don't think they have the horses to hang in here. So Stratford's probably going to get off to a really nice start in Region 7. Northwood at Hilton Head Christian. Chargers coming off another shutout loss on Friday. Hilton Head Christian. I looked at the scores a little bit. Northwood's got to load up the buses. They got to head to Hilton Head Christian. I think this is another tough night for the Chargers ahead. But eventually they'll break through in the win column again at some point in the season. Timberland at Philip Simmons. You talking about a good football team? How about those Timberland Wolves are looking pretty good. They are heading over to Philip Simmons, which is, I think, still just looking for its second win. They beat Hanahan a couple of weeks ago. The Wolves are coming off a 42-0 win over Hanahan. What a great effort by the Wolves in this one. The quarterback, James Austin, he was 7 of 8, and he threw for 175 yards. That doesn't surprise you that Timberland threw for 175 yards?
I don't
you don't
follow
normally see
them.
that.
I don't follow them close enough. I mean, that's good. 7 of 8 passes, no matter how many yards you get.
Yeah. Well, my point, for Timberland to throw for 175 yards, that's not a stat line you see an awful lot for Timberland. Normally, they just run right through people and just wear you down. Anyway, nice game by James Austin. Sorry to throw you a curveball there. 7 of 8 for 175 yards, 3 touchdowns. Also, would like to mention the defense, man. I looked at hand-to-hand stats, and they were not very good. That's a compliment to the guys up front for Timberland. One name in particular I want to mention, Javar Jenkins. He's a lineman for the Wolves. I saw him when they played Bishop England 2 weeks ago. He scooped up a fumble in a crowd of people. He looks like he's going to the house, and then the turf monster got him. He kind of tackled himself out there. Well, this week against hand-to-hand, Sam Moultrie knocked the ball loose from the quarterback, and he was standing right there in the end zone to get it. So good job by that young man to finally get this defensive touchdown. I thought he had one the week before, but I guess the football gods were nice to him. He was able to score his touchdown. Let's see here.
Maybe he just worked on his footwork this week.
Yeah, did some Zumba or whatever. But no, nice job by him. I know he felt good about it because against the Bishop England in the Bishop England game, it looked like he's heading to the house. Like, I got this. I'm going to score, Mom, and whoa. But it happens. It happens.
Yeah.
You do lose your footing from time to time.
Absolutely.
Cross is coming off a win over their rival. They beat Lake Marion 19-6. That makes the Trojans 3-2 on the year, which is a vast improvement from last year when they were 0-9. Good job by the Trojans there. They have a tough one this week, though. They're taking on C.E. Murray. It's at Cross. C.E. Murray and Cross have a couple of common opponents. C.E. Murray beat Kingstree 29-0. Cross beat them 16-13. C.E. Murray beat Lake Marion 53-0. And as you saw, I just said, Cross played Lake Marion in a little bit more competitive game, 19-6. So probably a situation here where Cross needs to play well and hope C.E. Murray helps them. But, regardless, Cross is playing a lot better this year than they did last year. St. John's Christian is going to host Buford Academy. Buford Academy is a defending SCISA 8-man champion last year. This year, they don't appear to be as potent as they were last year. Buford Academy is off to a 1-3 start. St. John's Christian, on the other hand, is having a really good season so far. They're 3-1. They're coming off a nice win over Palmetto Christian. It was 42-22. I actually did see the score was 42-28, but I'm going to go with 42-22. Just pick your score. Anyway, St. John's Christian, nice job by their quarterback, Ryan Booker. He threw 2 touchdown passes. He threw one to, oh my goodness, Nick Jimenez, and I think he threw another one to Corey Moreau. He also ran for a touchdown, 4 yards, and then he broke off a real long one for 72 yards. And the 2 other touchdowns scored in that game were by Corey Moreau on a kickoff return. He kind of looked like you in backyard football back in the day, just bulldozing people, knocking them down, stiff-arming them. And the other touchdown was Fletcher Law, 4-yard run. It was a fumble recovery by a young man with last name Pierce. And 2 plays later, our man Fletcher Law is in the end zone celebrating, doing a rain dance or something. We could use some rain, by the way. Berkeley.
Might get it Friday.
Really? Is that what it said?
No, I haven't seen the forecast.
Okay, I mean, it's going to rain points on Ashley
Ridge. We're due for a Friday night out in the rain. That's all I'm saying.
I hear you. Hey, Summerville at Ashley Ridge, just going to rain points on the Foxes. I don't know. I just said that. It's going to rain points on West Ashley for sure.
Yeah.
All right, one last game, and we won't go too much in depth in this one because we're going to do a separate video. Berkeley is loading up the buses. They're going over to Wando, region opener for both teams. As you mentioned, Wando's pretty solid football team. 3-1 on the year. Berkeley's coming off that classic victory over Summerville. This is going to be a knockdown, drag out. I have a feeling that Berkeley's better. Maybe I'm just being a homer, but I think Berkeley's better. But we'll talk more about that one in another video. Real quick, college football, North Carolina, Clemson. I heard one of our colleagues down there saying the Tigers got exposed. What's your take?
I think he's right. I think that the Tigers right now aren't as good as some people think they are. Now, that doesn't mean they can't win a national championship.
Can you define some people?
Well,
I mean, are you talking about anybody in
for
particular?
example?
Okay.
Me, for example, I don't think they're as good as. Oh, okay. Well, yeah. I mean, the people who do the ratings, for starters, they've had them at number one all year. They quickly abandoned that when they had a loss.
Okay.
I just think I think that Alabama should have been rated number one, or maybe Georgia, but that's a from the heart pick rather than the Georgia one. But I think Alabama should have been rated higher and let Clemson prove it on the field that that they should be ranked that high. But anyway, Clemson's a good football team. Not saying they won't win a national championship, just saying that they got some work to do before you can say they're the best team in the country.
Well, what I'll say is this. I look, historically, teams just don't make it through seasons without some sort of turbulence. I will admit, I did not think that game would be that competitive. I knew some turbulence was coming down the road for Clemson. Did not think it would be North Carolina. But when you look back at it, which is easy to do, North Carolina had beaten Miami, which beat Miami by more than Florida. Had already beaten South Carolina. Yeah, they were coming off they laid an egg against App State. But sometimes, and even Mac Brown said it, sometimes teams save up a little bit for the big game. And anyway, the North Carolina played great. They did expose some things in Clemson. But last year Clemson almost lost to Syracuse. Probably should have lost to Syracuse, and then ended up beating the golden child of the SEC by 4 touchdowns.
Right.
And after beating Notre Dame by 4 touchdowns. So it's a week-to-week thing. I know it's frustrating as a Clemson fan to watch that game, but hey, it happens. And look, if you're a fan of Ohio State, Oklahoma, anybody, hey, they're coming. And there's some adversity coming. It's just historically that way. Also, it kind of reminded me of Fort Dorchester in 2015. They won a state championship, right?
Yeah.
They went through everybody. But in the middle of the year, they had that one game against Cane Bay where they needed a miracle to wiggle off the hook and win the game. So, hey, good teams, great teams, whether it's Clemson or Oklahoma, they're going to have some tests along the way. So don't be surprised if you find your team in a close game. Yeah. Just remember to bring your heartburn medicine. Carolina beat Kentucky handily.
Yeah. Last week I was talking about how Kentucky's not the Kentucky of old. Well, they played like the Kentucky of old this week.
They did. They were very anemic on offense, and but still, Carolina had lost 5 in a row in that series. So for them to end that streak was big for them. I thought they played pretty well. I mean, when you don't give up, well, I guess you gave up 1 touchdown. That's a pretty good defensive effort, considering what has happened in some prior games. Maybe it's a step they're moving. Maybe it's a sign they're moving in the right direction. They got an off week this Saturday, and they got to go to Athens to take on the Dogs. Dogs are clearly a better football team, but that's why they play the game.
Yeah, and I mean, I watched that Kentucky-South Carolina game, and South Carolina looked good. Maybe they're fixing to hit a little streak. I hope it doesn't last through the Georgia game, but maybe they're fixing to show people what kind of team they actually are. We'll see.
Yeah. One last thing: Charleston Southern hosts Savannah State at 6:00 Saturday night. That is I think it's the town of Moncks Corner night. I know they'll have some political figures from that area out there. Maybe I know you get discounted tickets. Really good opportunity here for Charleston Southern to break into the win column after losing 4 in a row, but they have played a tough schedule. Well, anyway, that's football talk for this week, and we will see you at a field somewhere Friday. I'll be at Goose Creek, Cane Bay. Roger, you're going to be at Summerville, Ashley Ridge.
That's where I'm going to be.
Where it's going to be raining points on the Foxes.
I'm not predicting that forecast. I think there'll be lots of I think there'll be some thunder.
Yeah, Brody Hopkins is going to thunder for some points, and Perry Wilder is going to catch a ball over the middle and go 70 with it. So anyway,
Ashley Ridge has some playmakers now. They
I saw
they haven't shown how good a team they are yet. Not saying they're better than Summerville. I think it's going to be a good game.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a great game. I'm really kind of poking fun, entertaining. I don't necessarily know that Summerville's going to blow them out, but
well, if they do,
you got to stick to your guns. So I'm going to go with Summerville.
I'll stop disagreeing with you, maybe.
All right, I'll be at Cane Bay, Goose Creek. Follow me on Twitter. Follow Roger on Twitter. See y'all Friday night.